All right, so today we're talking about 6.1, roots of real numbers, and you should have taken notes last night on this, but we're going to go over it a little bit just to make sure everybody understands. So first, some vocabulary. Index of a radical. So when you see radicals, they're going to look like this. The index of the radical is this n value here. It's going to be like a 2. If it's a 2, then they don't write it. 3 or 4 or 5, so it's like square root, cube root, fifth root, so on. So for example, I could have a square root of 4. The index is 2. I could have cube root of 8. The index is 3. I could have the fourth root of 16. The index is 4. When you have no index, the index is automatically 2. The radicand. The radicand is the value under the square root. Okay? The value under the square root. So for example, here the radicand is 4 in the first example. The radicand is 8, and then the radicand is 16. And then this is just called the radical sign. So this is the radical. So you guys know I like to color code. So here's your index. In this case, there's your index. When nothing's there, it's a 2. Here's your index of a 3. Here's your index of a 4. Your radicand is the quantity under the radical. So in this case, it's a 4. In this case, it's an 8. In this case, it's a 16. And those are some examples. So, square root. So we could do like, I don't know, square root of 4. What's the square root of 4? 2. Now you guys have heard often that your square roots have positive and negative values. Well, now we're going to start talking about the principal square root. And the principal square root is positive. So it is the positive root. So here, when I see square root 4, my answer is 2. This is the principal root. Let's say I say, what's the square root of 25? Well, that's going to be 5. This is the principal square root. Now you know that it's asking for the other root if there's a negative sign in front. So if I have negative square root 25, then they're saying, okay, my answer is negative 5. For a cube root, in this case, you only have one answer. What's the cube root of 8? Well, 2, that's it. What's the cube root of negative 8? Negative 2. Because in this case, the first case, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. And notice my index is 3 on these problems. If I give you an example like this, and I say, what is the square root of 64? Am I talking about the positive root or the negative root there? I'm talking about the positive root, so it's 8. Let's say I ask you, what is the square root of, or the negative square root of 64? Well, I'm talking about negative 8 there. Now this is completely different from if I ask you something like this. I say solve x squared equals 64. When you solve an equation and you take the square root and the square root, you have to add a positive and negative. Okay, you are doing this. You know that the solution to the equation is 8 and negative 8. So x equals positive square root 64 and x equals negative square root 64. Therefore, x equals positive 8 and negative 8. Those are solutions to this equation. So if you're the one putting in the radical and you're taking a square root, then you have to add the positive and negative. If they're giving you an expression to simplify, and it already has a radical, then you do what it tells you to do. Okay, so be careful when you put in a radical when you're solving versus when they give you an expression to simplify. Okay? All right, so that's the end of 6.1. You should have already attempted some of those problems last night, and this should hopefully clarify a few things for you.